Washington is rattled. A sudden leak of an audio recording sends shockwaves, and the name that echoes in the tape is Lara Trump. Familiar words, then silence. An unusual pause. A break that almost everyone dismissed except for Congresswoman Jasmine Crockett. For Jasmine, this wasn't a glitch. It was a trace, a fracture in the wall of silence. And from that crack, a question emerged. Did a secret deal once exist inside the White House, never disclosed to the public? Lara Trump appears confident, denying everything. But Jasmine Crockett presses on step by step, pulling tapes, files, and witnesses into the light. A secret buried for years, now clawing its way back up. And Washington understands, when the truth breaks through, it doesn't just strike one individual, it can shake the very foundations of American politics. Summer 2025. Washington suffocated in heat, not only from weather, but from politics. Along the avenues near the Capitol, the air grew heavy, almost choking, as if the entire city was waiting for a political storm ready to erupt at any moment. Morning papers blared in bold, unprecedented questions around the Trump family. But inside the Rayburn building, where a closed-door House subcommittee gathered, the tension was thicker than the humidity outside. The third-floor hearing room was darker than usual. Curtains pulled tight. Cold fluorescent light poured down onto a long table buried under piles of files, scribbled notes and laptops frozen mid-sentence. At the center of the table, a small black speaker emitted a voice the American public had heard before years earlier in 2018. We've got a position, $15,000 a month. You don't have to do much, just stick with my father's campaign. The voice of Lara Trump. Sweet practiced, yet laced with frost. A tone every American knew well. The tape had circulated before on CNN, MSNBC, Fox, fueled years of debate, suspicion, outrage. But to Jasmine Crockett, still relatively new to Congress, a black woman who had only been in the House a few years, the interest wasn't in the words themselves. Those had been dissected into dust. What gripped her was the silence. That pause. That unnatural break right after Lara's soft laugh. That day in the Oval Office, and then cut. Gone. A silence so strange, it felt intentional. Jasmine furrowed her brow, setting her pen down. Why does it stop right there? Across from her, a wiry technician with glasses slipping down his nose adjusted his laptop. No signs of post-edit tampering. The cut happened live. Could be the device failed. Or someone deliberately stopped recording. In politics, Jasmine knew silence often carried more weight than words. She tapped the edge of her notebook, a low rhythm. In her chest, a feeling burned. Something was hidden there, buried in that pause, something more important than the $15,000 job offer everyone had obsessed over for years. The meeting adjourned. Lawmakers filed out. Jasmine stayed in her chair, eyes locked on the now dead speaker. She felt the tug, the insistence the missing part was the key. If she could find it, she could unlock a new door to the truth. That night, her office phone buzzed. Unknown number, no caller ID. She hesitated, then answered. A voice, hoarse familiar, lowered to a whisper. You haven't heard it all. Meet me at Capitol Parking Section C. Come alone. It was Omarosa Manigault Newman, the former White House aide. The whistleblower turned pariah who had rocked the nation with tell-all books. Jasmine tightened her grip on the phone. If Omarosa was reaching out, something monumental was at stake. The Capitol parking deck was dark, damp, reeking of gasoline and wet cement. Under flickering neon, Omarosa leaned against a concrete pillar wrapped in a dark coat, half her face swallowed in shadow. As Jasmine approached, Omarosa lifted her eyes, sharp-cutting. Do you know why Lara paid me $15,000 a month? Her voice was steady, confession-like. Jasmine remained silent. It wasn't work. It was hush money. Omarosa pulled a small silver USB from her pocket, cold gleaming. Inside, you'll find the tape you've heard before. But that's only the beginning. Only the first half. I've never released the second. I kept it to protect myself, to decide when it was time. Jasmine held the USB, the metal chilling her palm. Why give it to me now? Omarosa's eyes flashed weariness, the look of someone who had lived too long in power's shadows. Because you're different. You won't fold. But understand, if you step in, you can't go back. Lara, her family, they never let anyone touch their secrets and walk away unharmed. Jasmine nodded, her resolve settling deeper. Later, back in her office, Jasmine plugged the USB in. The tape was exactly as promised, Lara's $15,000 a month offer. Nothing new, nothing beyond what the public had already dissected. But Omarosa hadn't lied. This was just the first half. The missing second half, that was the weapon. Jasmine leaned back, eyes drifting upward, Lara's words echoing in her head. That day in the Oval Office, and then silence. She opened her notebook, drawing a thick red line across the page. Tape ends abruptly. Second half Oval Office reference. Must recover at all costs. At that moment, she knew she had stepped into a labyrinth. At its end might be truth, or a deadly trap, but there was no turning back. Outside her window, the Capitol dome gleamed against the night sky. Washington slept, but America's political heart never closed its eyes. Jasmine whispered to herself, "Sometimes silence is scarier than words. Then I'll find what's buried in that silence." The year was 2017. Washington had wound down after another day of endless meetings. But inside the Oval Office, the lights still burned. The president wasn't there. He was overseas in Asia for a summit. Instead, the room carried a different kind of weight. Not official, not ceremonial. Something colder, secretive. Inside sat Ivanka Trump, composed, her outfit crisp, her eyes darting to her phone again and again. Beside her, Jared Kushner, her husband and the president's senior advisor, his pale face drained from lack of sleep, his fingers fidgeting with a thick document stamped energy project. Across the table, Lara Trump posture, straight eyes sharp, radiating confidence. And the final figure, a tall, lean Middle Eastern envoy, his English marked by a heavy Arabic accent. On the table, no White House seals, no classified folders. Instead, a few stacks of loose paper, unmarked, unnumbered. One sheet bore the title, Animal Rescue Fund, Allocation Proposal. Innocuous at first glance, but when the invoice spoke, its meaning shifted. Our investment must pass through a legitimate channel. Your foundation, he looked directly at Lara, is suitable. No one questions animal rescue, but the funds will, in reality, support the Middle East Energy Project. Ivanka gave a slight nod, her tone calm, practiced. We must ensure the money never touches the administration directly. It has to move through an intermediary. Jared jumped in. Interrupting, the simplest cover is charity. We'll stage a fundraiser at Mar-a-Lago. Only selected donors invited. Their names appear as honorary patrons. On paper, everything looks clean. Lara crossed her arms, a half smile curling. I'll handle that. The media will see philanthropy. Puppies, kittens, heartstring photos, they're the perfect shield. In the hallway outside Omarosa Manigo, Newman passed by. She hadn't planned to listen, but the door wasn't shut. Words slipped out, energy, commitment. Our friend in Riyadh. Her heart raced. That name Riyadh did not belong in the walls of the Oval Office, without record, without protocol. By law, any conversation involving foreign governments had to be disclosed, documented, accountable. She froze, leaning closer. Just seconds. Enough. Inside, Lara's eyes cut toward the doorway. She saw her. No words spoken, just a glare, razor-sharp, cold as steel, a look Omarosa would never forget. She stiffened, hurried her steps down the hall, but she knew she had heard something she was never supposed to hear. Inside, the meeting continued, as if nothing had happened. The envoy spoke again, cautious but firm. We must ensure your government will not deny responsibility once the project begins. Jared leaned forward, not deny, conceal. If it leaks, it'll be called back-channel diplomacy, a slush fund. But without official paperwork, it's nothing but rumor. Ivanka adjusted her hair, smiled faintly. We all know the game. Americans like to believe the White House is transparent. In truth, they only need a story they can accept. A dog rescued. A cat adopted. That will do. Lara ended it, her tone cold resolute. Then it's agreed. I'll run the fund. You, her eyes locked on the envoy, guarantee the money. And we all remember this night never happened. 8 years later, 2025. Omarosa sat again this time across from Jasmine Crockett in a dim Capitol office. The years had hardened her face, but her eyes still carried the sharpness of someone who had survived long in power's shadows. That night explains everything, Omarosa said. Lara knew I overheard. She never spoke of it. But from that day I felt the leash. When I was fired, she called immediately. $15,000 a month. No work, no title, just silence. Jasmine scribbled quickly, her jaw set. Not just hush money. That's concealment of foreign cash flows inside the White House. Omarosa scoffed, her laugh bitter. Can you picture it? The Oval Office, the symbol of official statecraft used like a backroom deal with foreign billionaires, hiding behind puppies and kittens while they launder millions. And Lara. She did it as casually as if it were a weekend gala. Jasmine looked up, fire in her eyes. If the public knew, this wouldn't just be about ethics. It's FARA violations, potential tax fraud, money laundering through a tax-exempt fund, even obstruction of international finance investigations. That night carved a hole in America's national security. Omarosa leaned closer, her voice a warning. You don't understand. Lara will fight until her last breath. She fears no press, no Congress, because she knows if she falls, the whole family falls. And with them every secret deal. She'll bite back. Jasmine's grip on her pen tightened. She knew Omarosa was right, but she also knew walking away meant letting the law remain just ink on paper. She underlined a final note in bold red 2017 Oval Office meeting point of origin. Lara, critical link. Pursue to the end. That night in the White House had buried its secret deep. Now, 8 years later, it rose again like a ghost ready to drag down anyone who once believed silence could buy safety. The morning headlines hit like cannon fire house subpoenas Lara Trump for public testimony. By dawn, the streets around the Capitol were clogged with satellite trucks, reporters setting up live shots, protesters filling sidewalks with signs that split the nation in half. On one side, stand with Lara. On the other, no one above the law. Everyone knew this wasn't going to be an ordinary hearing. It was a duel, a clash between dynastic privilege and a rising voice of accountability embodied in two women standing on opposite sides of power. The committee had enough to act. No longer were they holding just a half-familiar audio clip from 2018. Now that recording was part of the official congressional record. On it, Lara Trump's own voice, an offer of $15,000 a month. No job description, no oversight, no responsibilities. And alongside it, Omarosa's sworn account of the 2017 Oval Office meeting. That gave the committee a piercing question. Was this real employment, or hush money dressed up as a paycheck? The hearing room was packed to the rafters. Cameras swept across the long oak table past the rows of lawmakers to the witness chair at the center. Lara Trump entered the room, her steps' deliberate posture rigid. She wore a pale suit that seemed to glow under the bright lights. Her blonde hair curled in practiced waves. She smiled faintly as she saw the cameras. Lara knew. Every move she made, every flicker of expression would be broadcast live. And she had trained for moments like this. Across from her, Jasmine Crockett sat with a file clutched tightly in her hands. Her heart hammered in her chest, but her face showed no sign of it. She forced her breathing steady. Only one thought rang in her head. This is the moment. This is the one chance to rip the veil away. The chairman struck the gavel. This committee convenes today to examine the payments of $15,000 per month to Omarosa Manigault Newman, and to investigate questions surrounding charitable funds and campaign finance. No ceremony, no theatrics, just blunt purpose. Jasmine was the first to rise. Her voice rang clear, deliberate. If there was nothing illegal, Mrs. Trump, Why did you authorize payments of $15,000 per month to Omarosa immediately after she was dismissed from the White House payments, without a job description, without oversight, without accountability? What was the true purpose of that money? Lara tilted her head, a faint smirk tugging at the corner of her lips. She answered with a casual air that dripped with contempt. It was a normal job offer. Nothing unusual. I believe this committee is wasting the country's precious time on cheap political theater. The chamber erupted with murmurs, gasps, the furious clicking of keyboards. In the press rows, reporters bent over laptops, pounding headlines in real time. Fox News' Chiron Democrats witch hunt Trump family. MSNBC's banner Silence cost $15,000. Jasmine held her ground. She leaned down, set her folder on the table, then rose again, this time her eyes locked on Lara's. Her tone sharpened, slicing the air. You call it a job. Then show us. Where is the job description? Who signed off? Who supervised? Where are the monthly reports? For a moment, just a flicker. Lara's confidence wavered. A hesitation, the briefest pause. Then her mask slipped back into place. She let out a scoff mocking, Congresswoman, you seem intent on chasing shadows. Omarosa is a friend. We wanted to keep her connected to the campaign. That's all. And if friendship is now a crime, then perhaps it's not Omarosa who should be worried, but Congress itself. Noise exploded again. Republican lawmakers slammed fists on the table, shouting witch hunt and political persecution. Democrats whispered evasion under their breath. Cameras zoomed tight, two women facing each other, one smiling thinly, the other unblinking, her eyes hard as steel. Another lawmaker took his turn asking about Lara's animal rescue fund, about the millions spent on events at Mar-a-Lago. Lara launched into a polished speech about community contributions and her passion for animal rescue. Jasmine wrote furiously, capturing every phrase. She wasn't listening for compassion, she was mapping patterns. Each word another tile in a mosaic that painted a larger, darker picture. For the public watching, the complex legal questions faded into the background. What they saw was simpler two women face to face. One the polished emblem of Trump family power, the other the sharp-edged challenger unafraid to strike. Television cameras lingered on their faces. Lara's carefully practiced smile, Jasmine's steady, unyielding stare. When the session paused for recess, the networks immediately filled airtime with commentary. Analysts sparred. One declared, "This is politics, not a courtroom." But politics has verdicts too, verdicts written by public opinion. Another quipped, "If $15,000 a month is what friendship costs Lara Trump, must be the most generous philanthropist in America." Back in the chamber, Jasmine lowered herself into her chair, her hand still pressed on the folder. She knew this battle was far from over. But today, before millions of Americans, she had forced Lara into the most uncomfortable spotlight yet. And across the crowded hearing room, as the buzz of chatter rose, their eyes met once more. Locked, cold, defiant, neither willing to yield. A gray morning in Washington. In Jasmine Crockett's congressional inbox, a plain brown envelope, no sender. Inside a thick packet, the cover page scrawled in blue ink check, carefully. The truth is in the numbers, signed only anonymous. Jasmine opened it. Her eyes froze on the title Animal Rescue Fund, Statement of Expenditure. This was Lara Trump's foundation, long branded as a pet charity. Rows of neat numbers followed donations, event costs, rescue expenses. Everything tidy, until one line jumped off the page: event at Mar-a-Lago, $2,000 or $1,000. $2 million for a fundraiser. Not unheard of, but the anomaly sat in the appendix. A hidden page marked off-record guests, listed among them a Russian energy magnate and a Saudi prince. Jasmine leaned back. The Oval Office meeting in 2017 echoed in her head, energy, Riyadh. Now the pieces clicked. The money trail wasn't for pets. It was a pipeline, foreign funds channeled into U.S. politics under the cover of charity. She bolted to the subcommittee's legal counsel. A graying lawyer skimmed the file, his face tightening. This touches two fronts. 1. If foreign nationals were involved, FARA requires disclosure. 2. Using tax-exempt charity funds for political or back-channel diplomacy could be fraud money laundering. Jasmine. And when paired with Omarosa's tape, $15,000 hush payments, it's more than rumor. It's a mechanism buying silence while funneling foreign cash. The counsel sighed. But if you go public, they'll strike back. They'll say this file is tainted illegally obtained foreign fed. Jasmine's voice hardened. If fear stops us, then law is nothing but paper. That afternoon, behind closed doors, Jasmine laid the file before her colleagues. One muttered, Mar-a-Lago isn't a resort, it's a transit hub. Another, if we expose this, we must shield the whistleblower. Whoever sent this is gambling their life. Jasmine cut through the silence. This is bigger than hush money. This is the Trump family opening the White House to foreign cash washed clean through puppies and kittens. The room stilled. Everyone knew if she said those words publicly, a media inferno would ignite. The next morning, Jasmine stepped to the House podium, press swarming. She lifted the file, her voice carrying, We have received documents showing Lara Trump's Animal Rescue Fund spent $2 million on a Mar-a-Lago event. In the off-record guest list, a Russian energy oligarch and a Saudi royal. This raises grave questions. Was this fund used to funnel foreign money into U.S. politics? Evening news split screens lit up. CNN Animal Fund, or Foreign Pipeline MSNBC, devoted a special. Fox blasted Crockett weaponizes garbage documents to smear Trump family. Online hashtags split the nation. Jachers stand with Jasmine versus Dr. China Crockett. At RNC headquarters, Lara slammed her desk. She thinks she can crush me? Not a chance. I'll show her what a media war looks like. Rage flashed in her eyes. Her team lowered their heads in silence. That night, Jasmine's inbox filled half threats, half love letters of support. One note stood out, Don't let them silence you. America deserves the truth even when it hurts. She sipped cold coffee, gazing at the Capitol dome glowing under night. She knew this revelation guaranteed retaliation. But fear wouldn't stop her. If truth carried a price, America's politics had to pay it. And now the $2 million and the names from Moscow and Riyadh pointed squarely at Lara Trump. The moment Jasmine Crockett revealed the charity files to the public, Washington exploded. News networks lit up in a frenzy. CNN's headline screamed, Animal Rescue Fund, a front for foreign money. NBC went further, devoting an entire roundtable to dissect the numbers, the names, the potential violations. But Fox News, almost as if waiting, struck back instantly, launching a primetime special. On screen, the anchor smiled slyly. Let's take a look at who really has transparency problems. The screen cut to old footage, a years-old academic panel where Jasmine Crockett had once sat as a speaker. The event, partially funded by a Beijing-based research institute, had been open public ordinary. But Fox's edit was sharp, sinister. A red headline flashed across the footage, Does Jasmine Crockett have ties to China? The strategy was textbook. Attack the source, muddy the water. To the casual viewer, the nuance didn't matter. All they saw was Jasmine sitting beside a Chinese scholar. The implication hung in the air like smoke. By the next morning, social media was aflame. China Crockett climbed to the top of trending lists. Dozens of anonymous accounts, many newly created, flooded feeds with accusations Jasmine Crockett is Beijing's puppet sent to destroy the Trumps. An old photo of Jasmine shaking hands at the conference was plastered with captions Beijing's agent in Washington. From a scholarly panel to a smoking gun of treason, the smear machine had done its work. Lara Trump herself appeared on interviews calm but sharp. Every word measured to pierce. The American people deserve to know that Congresswoman Crockett is playing a very dangerous game. She is not serving our nation's interests. Her actions benefit foreign powers seeking to weaken my family and the Republican Party. The camera zoomed close on Lara's face, her blue eyes ice cold, but her lips curved into a faint, confident smile. She understood the art of suspicion. Once a question was planted, truth itself became irrelevant. Almost overnight, Conservatives circled the wagons. Lara was cast as the victim of a smear campaign. Talk radio hosts roared. At rallies, signs waved, "Stop China's puppet." On right-wing airwaves, Jasmine had a new nickname, no longer just Congresswoman Crockett, but China Crockett. Yet the progressive camp struck back with equal force. Democrats reposted the charity files, insisting the real scandal wasn't some academic panel from years ago, but the $2 million at Mar-a-Lago, and the shadow guests, the Russian oligarch and the Saudi prince. Women's groups rallied behind Jasmine, framing her as a woman punished simply for daring to question dynastic power. And then Michelle Obama spoke, seated in a quiet studio. Her tone was calm, but weighted her words deliberate. It is dangerous when any woman who stands up to power is instantly branded as a foreign agent. What this country needs is the truth, not distractions. The clip went viral instantly. On social media, Michelle's words were replayed millions of times, spreading far beyond Washington. Meanwhile, in Jasmine's office, the flood continued. Half her inbox was filled with venom threats, slurs, even promises of violence. The other half overflowed with encouragement. Voters, lawyers, activists, all writing to say, "Stay strong, we need you." Her allies warned her in closed meetings, "They won't stop here. They'll dig into every scrap of your past, every speech, every handshake, every photo. They'll weaponize it all." Jasmine's response was quiet, steady. "If I falter because of a hashtag, then everything I've done until now is meaningless. They want me to fear them. I won't give them that satisfaction." Across town, Lara sat in the RNC headquarters, watching Fox News reports scroll the hashtag China Crockett across the screen. She chuckled, leaning back in her chair. She knew the game well. In American politics, you didn't need to prove someone guilty. You only needed to ask the question, what if? And once that question lingered in the air, it didn't matter how strong the evidence was. Doubt itself became the weapon. The battle lines were drawn. On one side, Jasmine Crockett, armed with documents testimony and a determination to expose the truth. On the other, Lara Trump wielding suspicion media muscle and a dynasty trained to fight. And in between, America torn in half. Some cheering, some seething, but all glued to the screens, unable to look away. Jasmine understood. The courtroom battle had barely begun. But the war of public opinion, the dirtiest, loudest, most ruthless arena, was already raging around her. The cafe was hidden away on a quiet corner of D.C.'s Old Quarter, where the brown curtains were frayed and the amber lights cast dim shadows across wooden tables marked with old water stains. Few people came during the humid summer afternoons, just a handful of students hunched over laptops. This was the place Omarosa chose for her second meeting with Jasmine Crockett. In the farthest corner, Omarosa sat in a dark coat, sunglasses resting loosely on the table. She did not waste time on greetings. Instead, she slid a small silver USB drive across the table, identical to the one she had given before, only this one gleamed colder, sharper. "This," Omarosa said slowly. Her voice weighted as the rest of the recording, "the part I never released." Jasmine stared at it, then looked up, her eyes narrow. "Why now? Why give it to me at this moment?" Omarosa's lips curled into a strained smile, half bitter, half resigned. "Because you didn't give up. Others would have betrayed me or disappeared. But you stayed. You kept pressing. That makes you reckless enough to carry this burden. But remember, the cost will be brutal." Jasmine didn't reply. She closed her hand around the USB, the icy metal burning against her palm. From this moment, the game had no exit. That night, the halls of Congress were nearly deserted. Only the echo of Jasmine's footsteps broke the silence. In her office, she shut the door, pulled the curtains tight, and turned on a single desk lamp. The rest of the room was swallowed in shadow. Her hand shook slightly as she pushed the USB into her laptop. The audio began with the same words the public had heard countless times before. "We've got a position. $15,000 a month. You don't have to do much. Just stay with my father's campaign." Jasmine sat motionless, listening, waiting. Then came the missing half. Lara Trump's voice continued smooth but cold. "If you reveal what happened that night in the Oval Office, he'll lose everything. We already made the promise, the money's moved, the deal is signed. You understand the consequences?" The room went still. Jasmine's breath caught. She pulled off her headphones, then shoved them back on, rewinding, playing it again. Just each word pierced deeper. The money's moved. The deal is signed. This was no longer about hush money. This was a confession. Proof that a transaction had taken place. Proof of an agreement made inside the White House itself. And the shadowy reference to he. Was it the president or a senior advisor? The question gnawed at her. But one thing was clear. Lara Trump had admitted everything. Jasmine sat frozen for long minutes before frantically writing across her notebook. The circumstantial had become direct. The missing half of the tape wasn't silence, it was evidence. The next day, in a small windowless committee room, Jasmine placed the USB gently on the table. Her face was solemn, her voice deliberate. The subcommittee's legal counsel, a gray-haired man whose career had weathered decades of scandal, slipped on his headphones and listened. When he removed them, his hand trembled slightly. "If this is authenticated," he said quietly, "it's no longer conjecture. It's a confession, a foreign money transfer, a signed agreement. Combined with the Mar-a-Lago documents, this touches FARA, the Foreign Agents Registration Act. It touches the FCPA, the Foreign Corrupt Practices Act, and campaign finance law. In other words, this isn't just an impropriety. These are potential federal crimes." A fellow lawmaker spoke up, voice sharp with concern, "But if we release it, the backlash will be nuclear. Republicans will scream, 'Deep fake.' Fox will unleash hell. Jasmine, you'll be their primary target." Jasmine sat straighter, her voice unwavering. "If we bury this, we're complicit. This isn't a choice anymore, it's duty." The technician spoke up, tapping at his laptop. Metadata matches the original 2018 recording. "No tampering. We'll forward this to an independent forensic lab for additional verification." The sound of shuffling papers filled the silence. No one else spoke. Everyone in the room knew once this left their hands, the firestorm would consume the nation, and Jasmine Crockett would be the first to burn. That night, Jasmine left Congress late. Pennsylvania Avenue was quiet, the streetlights spilling yellow pools onto empty brick. She walked slowly, the weight of unseen eyes pressing on her shoulders. Back at her apartment, she sat alone replaying the tape. The same words again and again. "The money's moved. The deal is signed." Her phone buzzed. An anonymous text glowed on the screen. "When you go public, be prepared to lose everything." Jasmine read it twice, 3 times, then switched off the screen. She rose, walked to the window. The Capitol dome shimmered in the night, blazing white against the darkness. She stared at it, steady, her voice no more than a whisper. "There's no turning back now." The morning of the hearing, Washington's skies were dark and heavy. Protesters filled the steps of Congress, split down the middle stand, with Lara clashing against no one above the law. Inside, millions of Americans tuned in live. Jasmine Crockett entered carrying a black case. Lara Trump followed moments later, radiant in her tailored suit, her practiced smile firm. The gavel struck. "We convene to examine the $15,000 monthly payments to Omarosa Manigault Newman and matters relating to charitable funds." The chamber hushed. Jasmine rose first. "Mrs. Trump, explain why you paid Omarosa $15,000 a month after her dismissal with no job description. No oversight." Lara tilted her head, voice soft but scornful. "It's sad. Congress wastes time on gossip. Omarosa is a friend. We kept her in the movement. That's all." Noise rippled. Republicans applauded. Reporters typed furiously. Jasmine remained calm, reaching into her case. She produced the silver USB. The room stilled. She inserted it. The speakers played Lara's voice. "We've got a position, $15,000 a month. Stay with the campaign." The chamber nodded familiar. But Jasmine raised her hand. "Let it play." The continuation blasted through. If you leak what happened that night in the Oval Office, he'll lose everything. We've already promised them the money's moved, the deal is signed. You understand the consequences?" Silence crushed the chamber. Reporters froze mid-keystroke. Cameras zoomed in. Lara's smile cracked her face, stiffening. Fake Lara shouted, rising to her feet. A cheap deepfake. A disgusting fabrication. Republicans pounded tables in outrage. Democrats demanded forensic review. Chaos thundered. Jasmine steady held up papers. Independent lab analysis. Metadata matches the 2018 original. No sign of tampering. Whispers erupted into roars. Across social media, hashtags ignited. The money moved, and the deal sign shot to the top. The gavel hammered. The committee will forward this evidence to the Department of Justice for federal review. Hearing adjourned. Outside hallways erupted in a frenzy of microphones and shouting. Lara stormed out, aides shielding her. Jasmine remained seated, her hands gripping the file, knowing today wasn't just about Lara. Today, the foundations of power had been struck. Washington did not calm. It burned. Cable news looped Lara's words endlessly. The money's moved. The deal is signed. To half the country, it was the smoking gun. To the other half, it was sophisticated deep-fake warfare. America split in two, the truth itself on trial. Inside RNC headquarters, Lara huddled with advisors, the air thick. "If they think I'll bow, they're wrong," I fight back. Her tone fierce, but under the table her hands trembled. Donors were pulling out. Her power for the first time felt fragile. Across town, Jasmine was elevated to icon status. Headlines hailed her as the woman who broke the Oval Office taboo. Magazines ran her portrait. She was invited to conferences. But with light came shadow. Threatening emails stacked. Unmarked cars lingered by her block. Anonymous texts surged. One night, a plain envelope slid under her apartment door. Inside, a folded note. "There's a third part, not audio. Documents with signatures. If revealed, you won't stand either." Her pulse froze. Documents. If true ink on paper would crush any denial. But whose hand held them, an ally or a trap? Meanwhile, Omarosa seized the storm, announcing a new book, What the White House Never Admitted. Rumors spread that she held the mysterious Part 3. Secrets became her currency. The American public, torn apart, debated bitterly. Talk shows lit with middle-aged women arguing Lara's a manipulator, buying silence with money. No, she's a victim of a witch hunt. On social media, dueling hashtags raged. Jirujashir stand with Jasmine against Chikash and China Crockett. Jasmine tried to steady herself. She knew if the third part surfaced, it could implicate not just Lara, but powerful figures, maybe even her own allies. The Capitol dome glowed outside her window, and she realized she was inside a labyrinth where every step could trigger a trap. At Mar-a-Lago, Lara stepped onto her balcony. Ocean, dark beneath her. On TV behind her, DOJ opens special investigation into Trump-era charity fund. She gripped the railing, her face unreadable, caught between rage and dread. She knew